at all. Yes.
Just like yes, man. Just make snap decisions.
Why not?
Why not?
Okay.
I can't roll like
It's still a decision. You still
is.
made one.
Well, that was one of the things I always said. I said, at least make a decision, whether it's a good one or a bad one, but do something.
Yep.
I have a hard time with decisions. I try to please everybody, and then I think about it too long, and then I spiral out of control, and not great. It's not great. No. Anyway.
Does this bring you comfort?
Yeah, petting my mic. Can you hear us? Oh, I don't even have.
Who knows?
Who I'm talking to out here.
Yeah, let us know how the sound is out there. We're trying to debunk some.
We're myth
false
busting.
myths. We're
trying
myth
to get some
busting.
bugs.
We're trying to find out if it's us or if it's individual people's issues.
Definitely me.
Sue Beck is here. Sue Beck, how can you hear us?
She might tune you out. How about Belinda and I?
She does.
Because she may automatically turn down the dial on that
We
one.
have 4 people on.
Look at
so
that.
5 people on. Someone let us know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. We're trying to figure
I
it
don't
out.
know.
Did you hit all the right
We all have to
buttons?
say something so that they can hear us. Something.
Exactly.
Ishkabibble.
Is that
But
Greek?
now we're down to 3 people watching.
Oh, so you already drove 2 people off. They're probably trying to check their sound.
Okay, Sue says the sound is good. Phyllis says the sound is good. All right, well, we're
Okay.
going to go with that.
Why not?
Hey, your mom says the sound is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a couple announcements.
Do we?
First of all, sound is a little loud.
Well, now
Well,
I
that's
can turn
not usually our problem.
It's not usually an issue we
it-
have.
Russ is a little loud, but
I've been told
but
that.
that is normal. Well, he was quiet last week, so now
Now he's loud.
we moved the mic, so he.
Yes.
We had to figure out. We've got to figure out our wardrobe with these wearable mics. Did you guys
Yeah.
notice that we don't?
Yep.
have
We've
mics?
gone hands-free.
Hands free. Hands free.
Yeah, because I think that's probably also the challenge for me on Sunday, because I wear it over here as opposed to right here. So that maybe that's the issue. I
Yeah,
don't
you have
know.
to put I was going to say a parament on, but that's not the right.
I could.
A
I could
dress.
be like Carol Burnett wearing the curtains.
The curtains. Yeah, no, that's not what you know what I mean. Anyway, announcements. We're talking about
Stoles.
announced stoles. Thank you.
There you go.
So this Sunday, Worship and Arts made a recommendation to council that we, because of the level of COVID in Frederick County, the number of hospitalizations, et cetera, that we are going to go back to requiring masks for worship and meetings here at St. Paul's. It looks like hopefully COVID is kind of over the hill and coming down.
Yeah, because everybody's going to have it.
That's right. But this is just being cautious for the people here in the congregation, because we care.
And we've got some important stuff coming up,
We do.
and we'd
So,
like to be able to offer that in person and not have to be a forced shutdown because we've got positive cases.
right, and that was kind of our thinking. The last 2 times that we went virtual was, if we take this step now, then down the road we won't have to be closed or anything. It says Russ is really loud.
Oh, he's hardly even talking. Are you even saying anything over there?
No, maybe I'm doing
Maybe
it
move it
telepathically.
I'm turning them down, Amy. I know how much you
Oh,
love to
maybe
listen.
she's tired of hearing it. Maybe that's it.
Deb Losso's even watching us. Hi, Deb.
So January 23rd, we have our town hall meeting, which is kind of a preamble to the annual meeting, which will allow you to ask questions and be really informed on what we're going to be talking about and what we're going to be voting on at the annual meeting. So please come on the 23rd and bring whatever questions you have. Joanne's in the process of emailing out the budget, the Constitution, and the mission statement. So we're not going to mail them to people because it's just a ton of paper. We will have copies here at church. If you need to come get a copy, you can get a hard copy, and we ask that you bring those the following week too, so that we're not printing out a ton of stuff. But if you need to get a hard copy, give the office a call and someone will figure out how to get it to you. So we have that.
So what he's saying is there's a lot of reading to be done between now and
There is.
in the next couple of weeks, but we're going to to you ahead of time, so you have a chance to process it all.
Right. Then February 4th
Yep.
is the blood drive and the parish hall. So I haven't looked to see what the status is.
We have, our morning is pretty full first thing. It's from 10 to 4, so our morning is pretty full. There's still like late morning and lunchtime, early afternoon appointments are all still available in the middle of the day, and then the end of the day looks pretty filled up already as well. So,
Oh, good.
The middle of the day, still lots, and this is the lowest. I just got an email, so those of you who have donated before, you'll have gotten that as well, I'm sure. But the blood supply in the United States is the lowest it's ever been.
Oh, yeah, I
So
know that they're
It's
really.
in like super critical. Today, if you donated the last time, today is the day, I think. Oh no, tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day you can donate again. So the Red Cross is like, it's your
Hurry
turn.
up, hurry up.
Hurry up. No, so, you know.
And then February 6th, we're going to have a seminar here presented by some folks from Carroll Lutheran Village up in Westminster about understanding dementia. And it's for everybody. It's for caregivers. It's for people who may have the onset of dementia. It's family members. So it's going to start at 1:30 here at church and go for about an hour and a half, about 90 minutes.
And we're going to cover, like, you know, some of those times you're just like, I had a senior moment. Is it something that you should worry about or not worry about? So kind of helping you assess where you are, or a loved one or a friend might be. And then the second half, as I understand it, will be more addressing people who do have some
Yep.
sort of dementia, and how you can walk
How you can walk.
beside them.
Yeah, and then there will be a Q&A afterwards as well. So please come join us. We're asking people to let us know if they're coming so that we can get an idea of attendance, because we want to have, would like to have a good showing. If we don't have a lot of people say that they're coming from St. Paul's, then we're going to probably open it up to some of the other churches in the area. So let us know.
So RSVP by the 30th of January to the office. We're just going to ask for your name and contact information, because in the world of COVID, we need to know how to get a hold of you.
Correct.
And that's going to be in the sanctuary, right?
That's going to be here in
Yep.
the sanctuary, yeah.
Yep.
On the 6th, 1:30.
Yep.
There'll probably be snacks.
There might be.
I'll probably bring snacks.
And then the last thing I got working
share.
on right now is we're exploring the possibility of having a vaccination clinic here at St. Paul's. So I'm still waiting for the coordinator of that program to give me a call back, and just keep your eyes open for how we might be able to do that here in Walkersville. So
So we're going to import and export.
yeah,
Yes,
Take the
we're
blood
gonna
out,
take
put the
blood, and then
vaccine
we're gonna
in.
bring- yeah.
it's all
Not
good.
going to be on the same day.
No.
No, not going to be on the same day.
Nope. You got anything?
I hope not. I think that's enough.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's already 12:06.
Yep. Okay. And I turned Russ down, so hopefully he's not so loud.
I've been turned down before.
Okay. Anyway,
Ruh-roh.
well, we are doing what?
Criminal justice. The ELCA social statement on criminal justice. We kind of did a preview and ramble through last week.
We
We
did
only got to
scatter
page
shot.
7.
First day back, it was, just getting our feet under us again. But we're going to start at the bottom, for those of you who follow us on the statement, we're just going to kind of gloss through the end of page 7 and then get into page 8, where they talk about the different facets of the criminal justice system. So here we go.
Here we go.
All right.
Assessing the system.
Yeah, so all in all, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America agrees that we need this type of system. I mean, it's part of what we've been taught as the two kingdoms, right? Where we have the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of earth, where earth is, we've put together these systems of justice, of support, of whatever, and those are really meant to do the will of God in the world. And the problem with that is that it doesn't
It's
happen a
still
lot.
It's full
human.
of people.
It's full of people.
Still human.
Right. It's people.
But the
It
civil
is.
government is a gift.
Where does that come from?
What? What?
It's people. You got to remember that.
I don't know.
We'll talk after.
Okay.
But come on.
I don't know.
It's an old movie.
Oh, him and his old movies. I don't know.
But
Anywho,
yeah,
That's
it's
all I'm going to be thinking about.
Soylent Green.
distraction.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna try to.
Okay, I got you now.
All right, we're gonna round it back in. Are we?
Herd the cats.
Yeah. So the issues, like Belinda and Russ both said, was that there's people involved, and if you, and we kind of touched on this a little bit last week about people complaining about unfair laws and whatnot, and there's a mechanism to fix that. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen because in this social statement, it talks about budgetary demands, political objectives, the whole host of things that come in.
Media.
Yeah, distorted media. We don't see any of that.
And also just the volume.
The volume.
We got a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of people to take care of, and to do it equitably is challenging.
Well, and just with change alone, the justice system is a behemoth. And to get it, just, if it's going down a hill and you're trying to shove it over the other side, it's not going to move very easy. So it kind of goes in increments as it goes.
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like trying to stand in front of the runaway trolley car, and you just can't do it. But the thing that really stands out is that there needs to be equality, and truly there is not in our justice system. I think we see it day in and day out where different people get different treatment, and that can't be the system. And so as we move into this, there's a couple of categories, and the first one is victims of crime. And I think I saw it myself, in my past career, is that there's not a lot of focus on the victim. There's not a lot of how do we help this person become whole, right? It's more about how do I get this other person off my plate? How do I get this person who committed the crime, did whatever, to be through the system and me not have to worry about them as a prosecutor, a defender, a judge, et cetera. How do I clear my calendar? Move it through.
Right, and those victims become kind of faceless.
That's right.
And voiceless.
We've seen a lot of that, lately with the different trials going on for sexual misconduct and whatnot, where the faces of the victims, and in some instances, this is a protection thing.
I was about to say, those were literally
No.
blanked out for their,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But I think that's the big deal, is that it's
So we're going to still keep hearing the name of the perpetrator, and what is the support system for the victims of that?
And I think that's
those crimes.
I think that's similar with a lot of crimes, is that the focus is on the perpetrator as opposed to what happened to the victim. You know, we kind, and I don't want to say glorify because that's probably not the right word, but we kind of lift up the bad guy because that's the focus in the news, that's the focus in, you know, everything, as opposed to, hey, you know, what happened with this person who got assaulted or robbed or whatever. You know, we don't.
Well, that's a situation where if you look at somewhere where the church could help, where, you know, being an advocate and trying to help change the system, you know, is important, but walking alongside victims of crimes, that's right in the wheelhouse of the church.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a way that we can play a big part of being that, not advocate, but just the support group, you know, for people. But again, it takes us requiring the knowledge that those things are going on, and often we're not privy to that.
And making sure that it's done equitably as well. You know,
Right,
that support is given, or maybe not equitably, but what was the word where like somebody needs a higher box? Remember we talked about that, one of those other ones.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Somebody might need 3 boxes to stand on to see over.
Equity versus equality.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so. Keith said Maryland has a pretty strong victim support law. Well, good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not so much in DC.
Yeah, well, see, and that's the other thing with the justice system, I think, in the United States, is there are states, and, you know, you go 2 miles over the border, the states are all different.
Right.
And they don't always coordinate well together. And then there's the federal law. So again, it's just, you know, for victims, I think it can be a confusing system to
Right. To navigate.
yeah.
Right. So I think what you said is right, Russ. There, you know, there needs to be a way for us as church to be able to come beside and be that support to bolster what folks may not be getting at the governmental level.
All right. Not to, you know, give victims the shaft again, but moving on to law enforcement
Moving
is
on.
the next portion
Right.
of the assessing the system.
And you know, when I was in seminary, we had to read a book. It was called The New Jim Crow, and it was a book that I had to read while I was still in law enforcement, and it was I put it off and I put it off and I put it off, and then I finally had to read it, and it was a difficult read. You know, very challenging. Especially for me, who spent my entire career making sure that people didn't get the short end of the stick, you know, that I was fair across the board. And, you know, I spent 2 years in internal affairs, and I know for a fact, I'm not naive to know that it doesn't happen.
Not always that way.
That's right. And, but I think much like any other profession, there are the rotten apples in the barrel, and
The problem you run into is a rotten apple in that barrel can cost somebody their life
well,
in many ways.
a rotten apple
Yeah.
in the medical field can do
Right,
the same.
exactly.
And I think, you know, I think that's where the uber attention comes, because focused on this, and this, because it's very visible, as opposed to, you know, look at the officer who ran into a burning building and rescued a child or something. You don't see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't stay on the news, and it may be you know.
Well, that's because that's part of their job. So this is the sentence I liked. It was the end of this, but it was like, the church affirms ongoing efforts to deal with stresses in the system and efforts to train and support members of the law enforcement system in constructively responding to bias and abuse. And that, like, supporting law enforcement and acknowledging that their job is stressful would maybe curtail there's a lot of psych evals and determination whether somebody can be a law enforcement officer, and then there's an academy and that sort of thing. So I would hope that the bad apples by nature would be floating on the top and picked out. But so
You would hope, but they don't.
Yeah, they don't, and sometimes they're just really good at masking that.
Right.
But I think sometimes it's the stresses of the job that wear people down to, and I think we talked about that last week, where you just get like,
Well,
this is
and
the 30,000th kid that
I've
has
seen
done
beaten
this, and
or
I'm
whatever,
just like
yeah.
over it, and how to deal with that constructively is
That's a very hard thing, because I think you will find typically, and I know that I did this, I kept my emotions in myself. When I left work, I didn't bring it home. I mean, there were times that,
I'm sure there was some snapping out.
there was, and Sue
Sue was entered the conversation.
and Sue would be, I'm not one of your perps, I'm your wife, and I get it, but
Yeah.
at some point, there's got to be some way to address or release that tension that's in there, and like for me, it's going camping or whatever.
To throw Jay under the bus, I don't know if he's watching this or ever will, but when he was a young officer, he would go to the gym right after. He would work 8 at night to 8 in the morning, and then him and a couple guys would go to the gym, and they'd burn off that
Right. Anger,
stress, whatever, through that. But, and he's had some subsequent trainings,
Sure.
but
There's just a
dealing
lot.
with, because you're not just dealing with your own problems, you're dealing with like
Everybody
else's problems.
Right.
You don't really see people, in law enforcement, you don't really see people at their very best. You see them at their very worst. And people who internalize that have a hard time, I think.
I mean, I internalized it, and I was able to do that fairly well for the most part, I think. Sue might
Sue, let us know.
Sue might disagree, but I think I did okay with it. But that's not the healthy way to handle it. It really isn't.
No.
And I mentioned last week, the husband and wife sheriffs who,
Yeah.
I don't know what the story was. I don't know the background, what was going on, but there are so many that get to that point that they can't handle it, and the only way they feel they can handle it is
to not anymore.
Is to not anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's law enforcement and military. I mean, there's
Military
there's-
too, right,
There's a lot
absolutely.
of mental health issues that need to be addressed.
And I think
all over the place.
you've got the key to it, Russ, too, is again, we as church are that place where, we can come beside people, where, we can talk to people, and I know.
Offer the space for support groups to meet.
That's right.
or camping trips.
Yeah,
You like your boot camp.
yeah.
We'll just send you out there
Well,
with
just
some.
send me out in the winter.
Yeah. Polar bear camp.
Polar bear camp. Yeah,
thanks.
I don't know if I would have enjoyed being out there this past week, because
Yeah, it's pretty
it was 9
The
up
ground
there.
is pretty hard.
Yeah, it was 9. So,
right,
although I
so-
do better cold than wet, but
Yeah.
so yeah, I think there's two sides of the story on both too.
Always.
Absolutely.
Always.
So then-
Judicial system.
Then we look at the judicial system, and it in here it says a just system is appropriately responsive to claimed violations of rights of persons or property, and treats all participants with equal respect. And I think that's what we don't have.
And I think a lot of it is financial.
It can be, yeah, I think so.
You know, but
I can afford to hire an attorney, the top of the line attorney, and some people have to deal with just what they're going to get, who has a caseload
That's-
this big.
And they don't get a pick.
No,
And they don't get to say, oh, this guy's really good at this. Let me use that attorney.
Yeah.
right,
You
right.
get who's free and
Oh, this guy with 5,000 cases? Yeah, give me that guy. I'm sure he's going to be right on top of it.
And that's part of what this says. It says, to have this fair system, everybody has to have equal access to representation, to be given every right that they should have.
oh, we got a long comment from Dan. I'll just let everybody read that.
But and that's right. I mean, I think we need to make sure that we are doing right by everybody, and that our systems are not overburdened. How do you fix that? I don't know.
Well, I happened to have this thing pop up. It's an older story, but it was still horrible. Where there was a judge, it was the Cash for Kids scandal. Did you ever hear of that? Well, it was a youth detention center, and this judge got kickbacks for every kid he sent there.
Oh, yeah.
That was a movie.
Well, this was
I think
real life.
I think that's actually true too.
Yeah, but
But
I remember
the judge has 28 years in federal prison.
Yeah,
But
sucks to be him, but that's where he
but
belongs.
the one kid made a MySpace page making fun of their principal, and she got to go to jail, like real jail, and ruined her life. Another kid killed himself because he got arrested because he got charged with theft of a bike that his mom bought from one of her relatives for him. They said they were in the court about 30 seconds to a minute, and he just gave him a kickback.
Well, and we're going to get to corrections, but that's what we talked about last week about the privatization of
Right.
and some people laud privatization not just in corrections but for other things, for highway work, for whatever,
Yeah.
as the way to go, because
It works in some situations, but not when you make money off of how many people you get.
No, I certainly agree. That's horrendous, and that should never be done, and there should be some justice for the person who does that.
But again, then that goes back to victims,
Right.
because they become victims of the system then as well.
Yeah.
And it's further down in here, but just to bring it up, it's further down into like what we can do to help kind of thing. And I grew up in that Nancy Reagan era there at the beginning with the war on drugs, and I never really thought about the way they are talking about that, waging war on drugs and third offense, three strikes and you're out kind of thing, instead of looking at everybody individually. It gives them that option of just like, oh, well, third strike, you're out. I don't even have to listen to what those other two offenses were or what this third one is now. I just know that you have three and
Right.
off you go kind of thing, instead of a case-by-case basis, which is what it really should be. The law is dictating what the sentencing should be and or the judgment should be, and I don't think that. I had never really thought about that before. Anyway, that's judicial system.
Yeah, and certainly there's, but again, it goes back to, the laws being made by one group, they're being enforced by another group, then they're being interpreted by another group, and then you have the guidelines that say, well, because we don't want this in our society, the hammer comes down, right? So.
And that they're still in our society. That's the part where like, we want them out of our society, but we're really just
We're not putting them on an island.
putting them over here in this society, which is
Yeah,
not,
Alcatraz is closed.
Yeah, it is not.
Well, one of the things
best.
that it really irritates me, just in general. But they have a line in here: the church affirms the responsibility of citizens to serve on juries. Every time I hear somebody talk about how they got lucky and got out of jury duty, it infuriates me.
So I went to jury duty.
Me too.
I've been there twice, and both times because of my profession, they said, no, we don't
Right.
want you. And I'm like, okay. But then you sit there all day and listen to the excuses of people to get out of jury duty, and you're just like, it shouldn't be that onerous. It should be something.
There's people around the world who would die
to try to do
be able to do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you want things to change, being on a jury is one way to help.
Yeah.
You know?
I was glad that they changed, and it hasn't really been that long, that they changed it from registered voters to everybody who's licensed. So like it was, if you registered to vote, then you were put in the pool for jury duty. But if you hadn't registered to vote, then you were not in this
You're able to skirt it.
pool of, jurors for your community. And it's been probably, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so
Right.
that has changed, which I was glad for, because I mean, it shouldn't just be,
But I think
or you shouldn't use not registering to vote as a way to get out of your
Right.
civic duty again.
But I think in part lies the problem of, because I had one case in DC that was continued 27 times.
Yeah.
And then it didn't get continued another time because the guy died. Conversely, my partner and my brother and I had arrested this one guy, and we had a case on him, and then I don't know, probably a month or two later, we rolled up on the scene where he had been killed. So we go to court and we tell the judge he's dead. We got subpoenaed 2 more times, even though we knew that.
There was not going to be a case because
But that's the ridiculousness.
That's a system problem.
That's a system
yeah.
problem.
problem, yeah.
Absolutely correct. And I think
because
that
what wasn't
which
getting
is
taken
which is
care of while
which
that
is what
was-
I'm trying to get to is with the jury system, you have so much of this jumble and bog and just everything that you should be able to go in and go to court and say, okay, we have blah 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 trial, boom, trial, go. And then you go. Instead, but it's not that way.
And again, that's that system that's hard to navigate for offenders and victims of crime. It's hard,
Yeah.
you've got an inside track having
Been
been there for so long, you have an understanding, but, somebody who just had something happen to them and are trying to muddle through that,
Right.
it's
And
almost like another offense on top of
well, that's the thing.
whatever was perpetrated on them.
If it was more efficient, more streamlined, then you might not have that. I need to duck out of jury duty, because it's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think we're going to fix the problem.
No.
Nope.
We're only on page 10.
10.
Well, some of this other stuff
It is.
we can breeze
We're
through
gonna
once
breeze
we
through,
get
yeah.
going.
But and then obviously something, the next piece of the puzzle is corrections, and the church affirms that
That's really long. It's a really long page. This got like,
that yes, there is a need for people to be in prison at some point, but how do we do that, right?
Well,
How do we-
it talks about different ways too. There's certain percentage of the people who need to be thrown in a hole and locked away forever, and there are some that don't. Some, we need to be able to differentiate the different kinds of punishment and rehabilitation that are going to keep, recidivism down, so you don't keep seeing the same people.
Right, and they have, is it truly a deterrent if I send you, like you say, Russ, in the hole, or is that something that's, I'm good with that, please leave me there, or whatever, I don't know.
yeah, I think there needs to be some crimes are going to be so heinous, they actually use that word, that person cannot safely be reincorporated back into society,
Right.
right? So that's where long-term incarceration is definitely needed. But if you're looking at someone who's had for instance, that talks a lot about drug offenses. If there is an opportunity to help that person, you know, if
Get them into a program.
get them into a program that's not maybe jail-based. And there are going to be different programs for different types of people. And there are going to be people that do need a very stringent inpatient program because they are unable to, at that point in their life,
Cope with it.
cope with it. But some are going to need, you know, a different, and it's not just drugs, it's alcohol. There's a lot of DUI.
Well, mental health, all that.
Well,
So
and
the
that's,
mental health
and that's
thing
where
is-
it
that's a
goes
whole-
to, yeah, mental health.
That's the biggest. If you were asked a correctional officer in our area right now, they would
That
probably
lives next
say-
door.
Have you happened to do that?
I know one. Mental health is a huge component, you know, and it's not PC to say, but some people are just crazy. You know, that's terrible. That's totally wrong to say, but they shouldn't be incarcerated. They should be in a facility that can help them determine what their needs are
Right.
and how best to serve them, their family, because putting them in that position is not helpful for anyone.
I fully agree with you, and I think I mentioned last week, though, I am greatly disturbed at the number of people that fake that.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. So that, you know, there needs to be some sort of system of evaluation because there's definitely some who have, again, back with the heinous crimes, and then using their mental health as the justification for horrible things.
Right.
Horrible things. And that's when that's, you know, like you're I mean, is chemical castration okay? That's when I
why you
said like
can't have-
alternative methods. I was like, is chemical castration a thing?
But that's
No?
why you can't have a one-size-fits-all,
Yeah, you can't just
zero
be
tolerance, three strikes thing. You have to, everything has to be taken individually if you do
Yeah.
want it to be equitable.
But the
Like,
other
and then the release of it too. I mean, because we've had, you know, instances where people were released because of overcrowding or whatever, and
just
there's no rehabilitation, there's no,
fly, be free.
yeah, and they're immediately out there offending in a horrible way, not, you know.
Well, and they get into the juvenile system too, where you may have a kid who makes a mistake, where they get thrown into a place where they're going to become a career criminal,
Just
and you
gonna-
make it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, we don't have the solutions for that
No.
here, but yeah. This is really good at this. Again, this statement is really good at making you look at things from different perspectives.
Right,
You know, from
yeah.
all, you know, all of those different opportunities to say, oh, I never thought about it like that before, and how that will affect what your decisions are going forward is
And they have
the biggest part, I think.
they have a fantastic paragraph on page, I jumped to page 19. I don't know if you had
Oh.
anything before that you want to get into.
Well, we've talked about racism and
Immigration.
yeah, and immigration, and you know, in this, it's it says, well, what's the church's call? What are we supposed to do? And it's you know, we also draw on our confessions and historical theological reflection, as well as existing efforts by congregations, social ministry organizations, and others for knowledge and wisdom about what works. And that's, you know, we've talked about that here at St. Paul's, where we come together as a committee and we work through things, we talk about things, and what's the best practice, what's not so good, and how to make it work. And I don't think that we see a lot of that going on at the higher echelons. I don't know.
It's the ideal.
It is.
Right.
That's the ideal, that, you know, the mediation, the open communication is ideal, on every topic that we've talked about, really. And I think it really hinges on respect and listening and what we're called to do.
Right.
Absolutely.
Hear
So-
the cries. That's the name of this.
So what did you find on page 19, Russ?
So I'm going to read their paragraph because I think it's really good. So no matter how good and just our laws are, they will be interpreted and enforced by fallible human beings. No matter how wise our attorneys and judges are, incomplete evidence will be all that we can rely on in rendering decisions. The facts of any particular criminal case can never be fully known in all their detail, nor be perfectly interpreted by those asked to render judgment. I mean, that's the unfortunate part of it. There's never going to be a perfect system.
And we can always sit here and, Monday morning quarterback everything.
All day long,
All
everything.
day long.
Right.
But you
But
have to
in
try
the-
to fix what you can fix and try to
Yeah.
get it as close to that as possible.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, for my job prior to this was typically after some sort of incident that we were involved in, we sat down and we did an after action. We debriefed it. We figured out, okay, what went well and what didn't. And then hopefully you put into practice the things that went well, and then you make sure that the things that didn't go well don't repeat themselves. And I think that that's a good practice, and hopefully plenty of people do it. But it's even stuff that we can do here at church.
And do it in a way that, again, is respectful and not Monday morning quarterbacking. You have to be able to look at the action for what it was in the intensity of whatever that situation was at the time,
Right.
instead of judging, well, oh, you should have done this, this, or this. Well, maybe, but, instinct had me doing this, this, and this, and so how do we then
Right,
fix
and
that?
understanding
Without judging.
Why they did what they did, or why any of that happened. If you can understand the why, sometimes you can help,
Right.
it from being repeated in the future.
Right. But, a lot of those after actions that I've heard of, people can be quite defensive about what their actions are, and then they're not listening to
And sometimes they are,
that
absolutely.
constructive criticism, as it were, and how does that then create more stresses in whichever situation that's in, or
Right.
does that after action help the situation in the future, or is it hindering? It has to be done, again, with respect for everybody.
And I've been on both sides of that coin where,
I'm sure.
I'm like, no,
You're
really,
like,
what I was
"What?"
doing was, and then as you sit there and think about it, you're like, we could
have done
we could have
that.
done it a little differently, and maybe that would have worked. But yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so this is that section that Russ was talking about. That's about yearning, and I liked a little bit further down where Christians see and feel the fissure between the righteousness of the gospel and the justice of the law in our everyday lives. So, like, part of the point of being a Christian is seeing the discrepancies and wanting to fix it. I kind of liked that. Like we can't.
Yeah, we're the
We
one
can't
part they have.
fix it.
We're not aloof spectators watching the world's troubles. We're supposed
Right.
to be involved,
Yeah.
not causing them. If we can help it, because sometimes that happens.
Right. Yeah. We don't want to do that.
yeah. I think the one thing that I highlighted on page 20, it was faith in Christ does not give special knowledge that trumps the reasoning power of those leading civil institutions. Rather, faith leads us into solidarity with suffering. The groaning of creation is our groaning, just as the Spirit of God sighs our sighs. That is why we, by the Spirit and our faith, eagerly anticipate and await the justice of the gospel. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, I think, is what does the gospel tell us? Where are we living in Christ?
And I like that, though. Just, believers aren't better than everyone else.
No, absolutely not.
You know, we
Sometimes
need to
they're worse.
Keep humility. Exactly. Sometimes that's used as a
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Hammer.
liked the solidarity with suffering because it was, not that, but that's, sometimes you can't fix it. Like, walking along the side of a victim or a side beside a perpetrator, you can't fix
Right.
the hurt that was there, but saying, or you're the person on either side, and forgiveness is hard for you, but that's what we're asked to do, is kind of struggle through that, the solidarity and suffering.
Yep.
You're not alone kind of thing.
So I think that's a good part to stop, and then we'll hopefully finish this up next week.
Do we want to?
We might be able to jump into the last one on the back of this too, because there's not that much left.
I would say, do we want to pick up on page 23 is like the wise responses of love? So
Yes,
like
I
what
believe-
we can do.
I believe that
Like
will
we're-
work. Yep.
We understand, everybody knows there's problems.
I think that's a perfect place.
All
Thank you,
right, so we're
Belinda.
going
Well-
to do that, this probably one more week.
And the next one is the death penalty, and it's only 6 pages.
Right.
So maybe we can bookend that on here, stretch this a little bit next week, and hit both of them.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know.
I don't know
We'll
about
see.
that.
I don't know about
See
that
how
either.
talky we are.
Yeah, it's already 1:15.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I think maybe we'll just wrap this one up this week and then. So we have 2 more weeks to finish up all their social statements, and we would love to hear, again, what
What-
you would like to hear us
Talk about.
talk about.
if it's an
What do
hour
you
of
wanna-
general banter,
What do you want to dive into next?
Yep.
Yeah, we'd love to know.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for sticking with us. We got 8 people on here, it's 45-minute long, so
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
We'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday.